Sure. Yeah, first of all, thanks, Nate, for inviting me. I've never done anything like this. Also, I want to say thank you to you for writing those articles on my blog. I think they're very helpful for people who are new to the eCash ecosystem. And I used to write articles like that as well, but it's been so many years of writing, explanatory articles that I kind of got tired of it. So I'm appreciative that you've kind of stepped in. Looks like we have a couple of viewers. Yeah, so introducing myself, I guess I got into crypto in 2017, um, July of 2017 to be exact, which is right before the Bitcoin Cash fork. So I kind of got thrown into the deep end because I really knew nothing about crypto, and suddenly, I bought my first Bitcoin just kind of on a whim, and then I learned that there was this hard fork coming, a chain split. The first time in Bitcoin's history, there was going to be a chain split. So I had to learn what that was, how to hold my private keys, how to split my coin. So I kind of fell down the Bitcoin rabbit hole through all of that. Learned about the Bitcoin Cash project, learned about the block size wars, and that's kind of how I ended up following the Bitcoin ABC team and Amari Sachet, the creator of Bitcoin Cash and also eCash. And so I've been kind of following their work ever since. And through that experience, I've kind of learned a lot about not just crypto, but about economics, about government, about the way the world works, and I've become so fascinated by it, and it's kind of consumed me over the past 8+ years now. But yeah, I've been following their work, and now I'm like a huge eCash supporters because I believe in what they're doing. I believe in their mission and the vision for the future that they're trying to build. And so yeah, you can find me on X at Cain Currency, and most of my content is predominantly going to be about spreading the word of eCash.
I'm Nate Novosel. This is the I'm So Excited channel. This is a preparation for next week's celebration session where we do a live stream. The idea is that we'll go through hopefully a lot shorter setup, a couple of minutes, hopefully. I'll keep testing this. I tested for over an hour before this thing started. Apparently that was not enough time to figure out the getting other people to join, because I could do this myself, but when you want someone else to join, there's a whole different piece of software, and I didn't know that until I was like, oh, I can't just add a person. That's not good. But I have the agenda for next week up on the screen. We're going to go through it with Cain because Cain's not able to make it next week because it'll be super early his time, and he's a sane human being. It's still early my time, but I'll get up for it. So what we're going to do is we're going to have folks join. Hopefully, I haven't gotten any confirmation. I'm kind of like, hey, come if you want kind of thing from the eCash team. But if they do join, then we'll go around the room, just have folks tell their stories about their journeys through crypto. Like to hear memories along the way of things. Maybe it could be when staking rewards went live, or when post consensus launched, or when they rebranded as eCash, whatever it is, or like weird times during the split from BCHA or whatever. Just anything worth telling as the journey has gone through. Then we'll cover pre-consensus and what it means, and the milestone and celebration, and then finally we'll do the journey ahead. And I joked the first time, not gonna be so funny me saying it twice, but since you're here for the first time, hopefully I could do it the same way, is that as soon as something amazing like this comes out, it's like, oh, great, what's next? And so it doesn't have to be that, though. We could talk about the long-term implications and so forth. So that's what we'll do today. At the bottom, that's not going to be done today, but for the session, we'll have the start time when I kick it off and do introductions to everybody. We'll start an official countdown at 12 UTC. That's when the pre-consensus goes live, but it's not when it goes into effect. And so it takes 6 confirmations for it, or 6 blocks for it to go into effect. And the and so we'll be checking when each block is completed as a countdown of sorts. And that won't, it's 10 minutes on average, but it's not exactly 10 minutes. So we'll have to monitor that, and then we'll do announcements. And I apologize in advance to folks. I will apologize in advance to folks on the call that I'll be interrupting anyone talking to say, hey, another block went through, because we have to monitor that and we can't tell when that will be. So we'll have to just interrupt people and jump in with that. So that's what the agenda is for. That's why it's on the screen today. It's just a quick little rehearsal thing. Hopefully I'll get it so it'll be full screen next time and have everyone's faces everywhere and all kinds of other stuff. But right now we're going to do it this way, just so that we don't waste everyone's time. So let's go ahead and get started. Cain already did his introduction, and because you could hear him. So I'll go from here and just start with the journey so far for you, Cain. Cain, specifically, you told me a bunch of stories, or maybe I read them. I can't remember. It feels like you told them to me, but I think I read them on your past blog for BCH and stuff. You talked about magic internet money and talking to people in cafes and all kinds of other stuff. Can you tell us a little bit about that journey, starting from your introduction to crypto through BCH and eCash? Can you tell us a little bit about what attracted you to it and what kept you going?
Bought my first Bitcoin in July 2017. I'd heard about it, but I didn't really understand it. And the only reason I bought it was because of FOMO. John McAfee was saying it's going to go to $1 million a coin. And I was like, okay, what the hell, just in case. I mean, there's a long backstory behind like all the various events that led me to buying my first Bitcoin. But the timing was pretty interesting because it was mid-July of 2017, and Bitcoin had gone from, I think it had a top of like $3,000 maybe a couple months before, and then it dropped to like 1,800. And that's when I was like, okay, you know what, I'll buy one just to see. And then soon after that, I learned there was going to be a chain split, the first hard fork in Bitcoin's history, as a result of the block size war. So I ended up having to do a bunch of research about it, learning like what that meant, how to hold my own private keys. And as a result, I kind of fell down the Bitcoin rabbit hole. That's how I discovered the Bitcoin Cash project and Bitcoin ABC and Amari Sachet, who created Bitcoin Cash. And I did a lot of reading, watched a lot of YouTube videos, and I found it all fascinating because these were concepts that I'd never been exposed to before. Like I've said it many times, but like the idea of libertarianism, I had no idea what that was before. And then I just found it really interesting, and I've been kind of fascinated by the space ever since. It's been a bit disappointing because I feel like crypto has changed a lot since 2017. You rarely see people talking about the freedom aspects of it anymore. They're all interested in, meme coins and pumping, and number go up. So I'm glad that you're doing this, and hopefully we figure out the technical issues and maybe try to onboard more people to the eCash project, and they learn about what this stuff, what eCash is all about. But yeah, it's kind of hard for me because I'm not sure that my sound is fine or if there's going to be an echo for other people. But
I hear you perfectly, so I think we're good.
July 2017.
I think they're comparing.
Yeah, I'm listening. It sounds fine. Okay.
Yeah, I think they're comparing your audio to mine, and because I'm using a professional mic, there's not an echo there, whereas you're using a laptop mic, and so it's a little bit echo, but it's not echo as an echo, nothing like that. Just a little reverb.
Okay, yeah, that was my biggest concern, was the echoing, or not the echo, like the echo one.
Yeah. Did you hear the reason why you couldn't hear me the first time? Is I forgot to turn on the power to the microphone. That's why.
Yes, I did.
It's red. Red is bad. Why would they make the thing being on red? I don't get that. That doesn't make any sense to me. Anyway, so so let's talk a little bit about stories. Can you do you remember the story I was referring to when you were like meeting someone in a cafe and showing them magic internet money? Do you remember that story?
Meeting someone. No, can you refresh my memory a little?
You wrote a blog post back in the BCH days, because if you remember, you're the first person I actually saw who talked about eCash on a regular basis, and so you had links to your proof of writing, but then you had links to the old one too, and so I read all your old blogs. I forget what the name of that
On read.cash is
yeah.
probably the site you're talking about, yeah.
And you said how you met someone in a cafe and you showed them, I think it was Bitcoin Cash, or it might have been Bitcoin, and you called it magic internet money back then, because that's what everyone called it, and you like dazzled someone with it, and you said you just really saw the power when it was like you hit a button or whatever and magically the money went over. Did you remember that at all, or is that just too long ago?
I mean, I'm sure I did that, but for me, the light bulb really went off when there used to be a blog called yours.org.
Mm-hmm.
So in the early days of Bitcoin Cash, so after the chain split happened, I had right before it happened, I had learned about like what a chain split was. I downloaded the Bitcoin Electrum wallet to store my own private keys and all that. So now I had one Bitcoin Cash, and I was like, okay, now what am I supposed to do with this stuff? Like, which one's better? So I did a bunch of Googling and found this blog called yours.org, which was run by Ryan X Charles. Some people probably know who that is. And I thought it was, as someone that likes to write, I thought it was interesting. Like, oh, I can write articles on here and earn Bitcoin Cash, or I can. And he had the whole paywall functionality, built in. So you have your own wallet built in, and you're able to paywall articles. And so there was a guy, his name was Ups and Downs. He was in the Bitcoin Cash community, and he would do like technical analysis, charts. And that's all I cared about. Is Bitcoin Cash going to go to the moon, basically? And he had posted an article saying, he has some charts, but I couldn't access it because it was paywalled. So I was like, oh, I can send a little bit of Bitcoin Cash to unlock the article. And so I did that, and it was like instant, right? I sent it and I saw it show up in my yours.org wallet balance like within a second. And that's when the light bulb went off. And I was like, wow, this is like very different, because yours.org didn't need my name. They didn't need my credit card number, none of that. It was just, I just signed up for it using a burner email account or whatever. And once I deposited the BCH, I could now unlock the article, read like his technical analysis, and see like where BCH is going. And I was just blown away. And for me, that was like the real unlock. Before that, I didn't understand Bitcoin. I had tried for a long time. I probably first heard about Bitcoin in 2013, read an article. It all went over my head. I had no idea what they were talking about. And then little by little over the years, I would see it in the news, like college football game. I know you're a football fan. And there would be stories of a guy at a college stadium holding up a QR code, and people sent him like $25,000 of Bitcoin. And so these little stories kept adding up, and I'd hear it, but I'd kind of forget about it again. And then I want to say 2016, the sports betting account I use, it was bovada.lv, I think is. So I saw a deposit option for Bitcoin, and I didn't hold any Bitcoin at the time, but for these offshore casinos sports books, in order to deposit with a credit card, they had a hefty fee. It'd be 5 to 10%, which really sucks. So I was like, this Bitcoin thing. So I went as far as setting up a Coinbase account, but I didn't actually buy any. And then in March of 2017, I went to a kid's birthday party, and a buddy of mine was like, hey, Cain, check out this, check out all these coins I hold. And he was showing me this app, and he kept telling me, just buy one Bitcoin. I've seen you gamble. One Bitcoin is nothing. It was I think $800-900 at the time. He was like, I've seen you blow thousands of dollars at a blackjack table. Just buy one Bitcoin. And even then, I didn't listen to him, because I didn't understand. It would be like playing blackjack without understanding the rules, which I wouldn't do. So like I was trying to understand it. People kept saying it's like money, it's like digital gold. None of that made sense to me. Like I already have money and it's already digital because I have a, PayPal and, my bank account I can access online. So I still didn't buy it, and I watched for the next several months as the price went from like $800-900 all the way up to 3,000, and I was just hating life. I was like, oh my god, I'm such an idiot! Like I should have bought some, and I didn't want to hear about Bitcoin ever again. I was like, I just stopped paying attention because it just kind of made me depressed that I could have bought some and like tripled my money in a matter of months, which is unheard of. When you buy stocks, you're happy if it triples over like a decade. But then I went on a business trip and I was sitting in the airport for the flight home, and one of my coworkers, he opened up his phone and he was on the Coinbase app. I was like, huh. So I started talking to him about it, and like he didn't really know much either, but it got me to pay attention again. And literally the very next morning, I woke up, checked the price of Bitcoin, and it had crashed like I said, to like $1,800 from 3,000. So I was like, at this time I'm not going to make the same mistake. I bought one, even though I didn't understand it. And I was like, okay, now that I have one, I'm incentivized to like try to learn. Even then it was hard, but after the whole Bitcoin Cash split, and then let me actually backtrack a little bit. So because of that split, I had to learn how to withdraw my coins. So I withdrew the Bitcoin from my exchange, and then like I think I actually withdrew it to like a paper wallet. So like I sent it to a paper wallet. I could see from the block explorer that it was sitting there, and then I split the coins. So I had one Bitcoin Cash, and then the Bitcoin was listed on my exchange. So I sent it back to the exchange. But when I sent it back, I didn't see it show up in my exchange for hours, especially in 2017 during that time. The blocks were full, so like transactions, the transaction fees were high, and it took a long time for your transaction to get included in the block. So I was like, this sucks. Like I don't know why people call this magic internet money, because literally for hours I had no idea what happened to my one Bitcoin, and it was a couple $1,000, and I was like, did I just lose my money? And so I was like, how is this the future of finance? Eventually it showed up, and then meanwhile, I still have my Bitcoin Cash because it wasn't listed on my exchange. So I just had to hold it on my own until I found that yours.org blogging platform I mentioned. So there I was like, okay, I could send a little bit to the blog. And that's when I saw it instantly show up. I was like, oh, this is why they call it magic internet money. And sorry, I forget what the original question was, but
no, it's great. I appreciate that. Was a great story. By the way, while I was staring at my screen, and I realized I think that copy solo view link is the one I'm supposed to paste into the browser to get the actual front stage thing. And I think the reason why you can hear me but the audience can't is that I'm the director, so I'm like behind the scenes, and if I hit that link, and I'm not going to do it because it's working, so I'm not screwing with it, but I think if I just paste that link into the browser, it'll show up, it'll look nice, and everything will be great. This is the director view. I just realized that now, but anyway, complete aside. Yeah, I mean, I love that story. It's just a great way kind of talking about that journey. It's so funny. I found out about Bitcoin from the Colbert Report, if you remember that from years ago, when he kept making fun of it. He kept going in Bitcoin and kept doing that thing that he would do when he'd make fun of how it wasn't really like money, but everyone was buying it and the price was going up. And I was always like, oh, that's cool. Cryptocurrency, digital money. That's awesome. But I was like, how do you buy it? And I had no idea. It was only until, it wasn't until, what's it called? Coinbase. Coinbase got popularized. And then they started having those like, hey, learn about crypto, make money. I set up an account. What was that in 2020, 2021, something like that, where I got into like, it was like, I think AMP and XLM and some other ones that they were giving you free.
Oh yeah, you can like do these little tutorials and they give you free coins.
Yeah, that's how I got into it. And then I started buying, my story, I started buying them by the hundreds and, all kinds of other stuff. But then they started kicking US customers off the exchanges. And so so I had to sell it all, and I sold all these huge losses because I couldn't hold it. And if I sent it out of the exchange, it would cost a fortune. So when I found eCash, I'd love to hear your story, but I'll start with mine since we can go back and forth on it. eCash, I kid you not, I was just buying hundreds of crypto, and I was like, well, what's the lowest priced crypto I can buy? I just sorted in order of, because I was like, well, I'll just go from low cost to higher cost and just buy the hundreds. And eCash showed up as like the lowest cost coin in the entire thing. But that wasn't what attracted me. Obviously, a bunch of zeros and the thing was weird, but it's not the reason why I did it. The thing that attracted me, I said, oh my God, there's actually a currency called eCash and not Bitcoin or Dash or any of these other, branded names, but really just call it what it is. And then I looked at it, and it said, it had the revolutionary new cryptocurrency founded on the principles by Milton Friedman. And I was like, well, Milton Friedman, love me some Milton Friedman. And so I was all on board and drinking the Kool-Aid on this thing, because like, hey, this thing is amazing. And then I found out about how it was a fork of a fork, and how they were trying to, improve the capacity and the transaction speed and confirmation times and all these things. I said, that's literally everything that's wrong with crypto. And then of course, reduce the fees. And I was like, how does everyone not know about this? Like, sounds like the greatest thing ever. But I think people get desensitized to all the hype and the influencers and the cute names and memes, cute little dog memes and stuff. And people just kind of get caught up in that stuff. But someone who actually understands what's going on, and there are people who are actually trying to like make the world's best money as a medium of exchange, not just a store of value. That is the thing that attracted me to it. And then I bought some, I experienced it through Cash Tab and so forth. And it was just out of all the things I used, it was the most effortless experience. And to like have to export and pay like anywhere between a few cents to a few dollars to get money off my exchange, to being able to move eCash from one wallet to another for 5.5 XEC, I was completely blown away. I was like, this is instantaneous. Like the money just immediately shows up. It's not like, oh, I'm going to take 20 minutes to think about it for a while. It costs almost nothing. I mean, I like the fact that it costs a little because you have to incentivize the sustainment of the network, but it costs borderline nothing, so you don't even notice it. And it's instantaneous, and it could handle tons of transactions. And I was just like, this is so much better than every other cryptocurrency in existence right now, including Bitcoin. And every time I use another crypto, because I still have other crypto, every time I use other crypto, I go, why can't it be as fast and easy and cheap and capable as eCash? And so my use of other crypto has driven me to want to buy more eCash. And so that's when I drank the Kool-Aid pretty hard. And that's why I'm, one of the big stakers and all that jazz. So, I mean, that was my story to go from crypto to eCash. I'd love to hear because I'd like to hear, first of all, you started writing about crypto. So you told a story about how you liked crypto. I'd love to hear about how you liked it enough to start to write about it. And then you went from a journey from Bitcoin Cash to eCash. I'd love to hear that as well.
Okay, so yeah, you can't see me, but I was smiling the whole time you were talking because you're preaching to the choir about using other chains and it driving you to eCash. Yeah, every time because yes, I hold some other coins as well, and it's annoying. Like the user experience is so bad compared to eCash. Like the other day, I realized the ledger that I use for some of these other coins, like the light's dimming, and it's like hard to like. And I'm not sure if that ledger is gonna die. And yeah, it's just I think the eCash ecosystem is so much better that it's hard to compare. But yeah, so how did I go from Bitcoin Cash to eCash? That's also a crazy long story. But
here, go ahead. We got time.
Okay, so yeah, Bitcoin Cash was like it's an interesting community because it started with the big blockers, right? The people who rejected this idea of like, oh, we gotta scale using layer twos like the Lightning Network. We just need to raise the block size, and that'll increase transaction throughput. And I agreed with them because I actually used Bitcoin Cash and saw the user experience was by far better than Bitcoin. And what they were saying was making a lot of sense to me. So that's how it started. It was like a bunch of people who believed in the whole big block movement. But over time, there were like factions within that community. Most people know about the Bitcoin Satoshi's Vision faction, the people who thought Craig Wright was Satoshi. So there was that initial like split where, yeah, as I said, I'm not an engineer, so I wasn't really, I don't, when Craig Wright talked about like various technical things, I didn't have the knowledge to know, is this guy telling the truth or not? And I wasn't sure like which side should I pick. Luckily, I was in the Bitcoin Cash Discord and probably on the Discord at that time. And I was able to communicate with people who seemed very intelligent, like normal people. And they were able to convince me that Craig Wright is a fraud, that he doesn't know what he's talking about. And so, yeah, when that split happened, I sold my BSV and bought more BCH. So now I'm a Bitcoin casher, a B casher. And, we've said bye to all the BSV folks. But then because of this long bear market, so that split happened in November 2018. And then immediately after that, the entire crypto market just crashed, like cratered, everything from Bitcoin down to all the altcoins. And I was so depressed, man. Like, I know a lot of eCashers are not happy about the current price. It's fallen a lot. I went through the same thing with Bitcoin Cash in November 2018. I literally remember buying one Bitcoin at the very top on Coinbase. I think it was $4,000 when it got first listed there. And then that went from $4,000 all the way down to $75. So it's kind of a similar drop from what eCash has done from its peak to the bottom now. And I was so depressed. I remember one time I was like dropping my kid off at school, standing on the corner, and one of my buddies saw me, like he drove by, and then I saw him later. He was like, "Hey, I saw you, standing with your kid. You look so depressed. Something wrong?" And it was because of my crypto was, I was down so bad. But like, I don't know, for some reason I'm not depressed now, even though eCash has dropped about the same percentage wise. But despite the fall, I was like, I still believed in the technology itself. And I thought it was revolutionary. And like, by then I was starting to buy into all the freedom aspects of it. And so I didn't sell. I just kept holding, and I kept learning more about like what Bitcoin ABC was doing, what Omri was doing, and like their roadmap for how to turn this into, cash for the internet, basically. Although at that time, that's not what they were calling it. And then, of course, now we had another like bout of infighting within the Bitcoin Cash community because of the price being so low. So because the price was so low, there was no funding. The main team that was maintaining the Bitcoin Cash software was Bitcoin ABC. There are all these other hobby developers. I know they take offense to that, but that's really what they were, because I believe most of these guys have, a day job, and they're just kind of working on Bitcoin Cash on the side. And so they had different clients. There's Bitcoin, I'm trying to remember all the different names. There was BCHD, Knuth, Bitcoin Verde, Bitcoin Unlimited. So literally there's like 6-7 different. Oh, there was this other guy, Tom. I can't remember them all, but yeah. So there are all these other developers creating their own like node software, and so they don't need funding because it's just a hobby. But for the Bitcoin ABC guys, they were working on this full time, and I believe they were mainly funded. The theory, like most people speculate, they were funded by Bitmain, the mining hardware manufacturer. So because they were supporters of big blocks early, so they were sponsored by them. But because of the price of BCH going down so much, like they could no longer afford to sponsor Bitcoin ABC. So Bitcoin ABC said, "Hey, we need money to keep the lights on, to keep going, because this was their day job. They were working on this full time." And they've like Bitcoin.com, run by Roger Ver, they had some fundraisers. They did these fundraising campaigns using, like, first it was just run by Bitcoin.com. They got, I think at the time, about 800 BCH. It was a couple $100,000, which is like really very little. That'll pay for maybe one developer for like a year. And basically it wasn't enough funding. Like, you need, if you're going to try to attract more developers, I understand that you're going to need to be able to tell them, like, we have enough funding, we have a runway of like X amount of years, so that they don't join and then find out they're going to get laid off in 6 months. So this was a real problem at that time. Amari was trying to make other people aware of the problem, but they weren't listening, because to them, hey, this is like a volunteer movement. We should be like all these other hobby developers. You should be volunteering your time to work on this software. Why are you like complaining about the money? Like, Bitcoin didn't have real funding either. It was just Satoshi and Gavin, people using their spare time to work on this stuff. So Amari got a lot of hate, including by myself, because he was seen as like the leader of this project, and we expect him to be like this positive rah-rah, like cheerleader type. And to hear him just complaining about funding, you get kind of disheartened. You're like, what's wrong with him? Like, why can't he be the kind of leader that we, like a Tom Brady type person, while ignoring the fact that Tom Brady is paid millions of dollars to, quarterback the New England Patriots. So like, I remember at one time, that's when I joined Telegram, and I was like, okay, there's all this infighting. I hold a decent amount of BCH, and I'm watching my investment go up in flames. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna get involved. So I joined this CoinSpice channel. Like, I don't know if it still exists. I'm no longer in it, but it was like a group of hardcore BCH supporters, and we would chat every day about like various things. And so we were talking about the problem of the funding, and I accused Amari of like holding the chain hostage. Like, he's not willing to work because he's not getting paid, and basically he's holding the chain hostage. And he did not take that lightly. He did not react very positively to that. He basically said "F you." Literally the only time I've ever seen him use that kind of language to directly
was that you?
And it was at me. And like, I was kind of taken aback, because like, I don't use that kind of language either. So if someone heard me say that to them, I'm sure they would, like, amongst my friends, they would be like, whoa, I must have really done something to piss him off. And so that led to me doing a lot of self-reflection. Like, okay, I've never seen him say F you to someone other than me. So I went back and thought about it, and it like changed my perspective. It made me realize, like, okay, he's not holding the chain hostage. He's actually trying to explain to people like there's a real problem here. He's trying to get their attention, and in exchange, he's being accused of like being like this malicious actor, trying to like enrich himself or anything, something like that. So then that's kind of like how I became a Amari fan. Like, slowly my perspective changed. And then in 2019, they had they had that fundraiser early on. It wasn't enough money. So, Amari's still saying, look, he's basically shedding light on the fact that fundraiser did nothing, meanwhile, Roger and the Bitcoin.com crew is kind of like saying what a success it was. Hey, we raised all this money. But the reality was, it was nowhere near, how much money they needed. And, and that money was divided amongst all these different developer teams. It's not like it all went to Bitcoin ABC. So then he continued to raise the alarm bells. And then in 2019, there was this conference, Bitcoin Cash City conference in Australia.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's when Amari gave a talk called Bitcoin Cash Culture, and it's still available on YouTube. And that was like one of the best talks I'd heard, specifically in crypto, definitely one of the best talks I'd ever heard. And really, I think, like, for people who were in the Bitcoin Cash community at the time, it opened your eyes to like what the real problem was and what was preventing Bitcoin Cash from succeeding. So yeah, I highly recommend people watching that. And I thought it was such a good talk that I decided to transcribe the whole thing, which took me hours. This is before AI was as useful as it is today. So, just listening to it, and luckily I'm a fast typer, so I was like typing along. But because I'm typing along, it kind of gets into your brain a lot more. And so like I became like a huge Amari fan. I started writing articles, like trying to explain what he's trying to say. I transcribed a couple of his interviews, I think. And then right after that conference in January 2020, one of the big Bitcoin Cash miners, Zhang Zhuor, he out of nowhere released this Medium article about an idea for the IFP, the Infrastructure Funding Plan. So his proposal was, let's take some of the block reward, and instead of it going all to the miners, let's take just a small portion and use that to fund development. And it was kind of a big bombshell. Like, the Bitcoin Cash community, for a while, we were like, whoa, what is this? Like, it's a huge change to the protocol. There was all kinds of debates, which is really funny because in the original article he wrote, he said, let's not debate this, let's just do it. Mm-hmm. But all it did was lead to like all kinds of debates, including myself. So yeah, in the beginning, I didn't know which side I landed on, just like the BSV split. I was like, okay, initially I was for the IFP. And I think right after the announcement, the price of BCH even went up because it was seen as a good thing. But then more and more people started complaining that, this kind of ruins Bitcoin. It's the whole tax thing. They're saying it's a tax. And, including people that I spoke to on a regular basis. So like it kind of swayed me the other way for a little bit. But then ultimately, after, thinking about it, on Read.Cash, there's actually articles where you can see me flip-flop a couple times. Ultimately, I landed on no, I think we need the IFP. And so, yeah, I think one of the main issues for the people who were against it was the fact that, who decides who gets the funding, right? Like, does it all go to Bitcoin ABC? They saw it as like a centralization force and potential like, what do they call it? A central point of failure, basically, right? What happens if Bitcoin ABC goes down? Then now, like, we've got all kinds of problems. And I saw those as valid arguments, but after speaking with like the ABC guys, I ultimately realized, we got to do something. Otherwise, it's just going to die because there's no funding. At least this is a solution to the problem. It might not be, at least at the time, a perfect solution, but, what's the saying, don't let perfect be the
enemy of the good.
What's that?
Don't let perfect be the enemy of the good.
Exactly. So, I was like, yeah, I can't expect perfection. There's that Thomas Sowell quote, like, there are no solutions, only trade-offs. So I realized, what, this is about as good of a solution as we're going to get. Let's divert some of the block reward to pay for development, and we can work out some of these other issues later. So I supported ABC, and I was hopeful that others would too, but I was in the vast minority. And then a group of these hobby developers decided to fork the Bitcoin ABC code. They took out the IFP and said, you know what, if you support Bitcoin Cash without the IFP, let's run the BCHN node, which is what their node client was called, and not run Bitcoin ABC. The vast majority of people ran BCHN, including the miners. So Bitcoin ABC was a very, very small minority fork, minority chain. I think at the time of the initial split, they were definitely like less than 10% of the mining power. And then eventually, like because of the price fluctuation, it fell all the way down to like less than 3%, which coincidentally we are now. So like the price of XEC is around 3% of BCH in terms of market cap. And so at that time, once the split happened, I I was a huge Amari fan, a huge fan of Bitcoin ABC. Like the things they were saying made a lot more sense to me than what the BCHN people were saying. And I could go on and on about this. There's so much more to they put out all these like what are the petitions, like people they would write an article on read.cash and people would like sign it and saying I support BCHN, I reject Bitcoin ABC, and it was all these other hobby developers. And but there was me and like a small group of other Bitcoin ABC supporters, like Crypto Panda is one, and GIAC. There's a handful of us that continue to support ABC, and after the split, a lot of us we just started selling our BCH for more XEC basically. And so I became, at one point I was able to sell one BCH basically for 33 million XEC a pop. I can't believe that you can do the same today, which is crazy. But that's kind of how I went from being a Bitcoin Cash supporter to an eCash supporter. It was the IFP split basically. And to me, I thought the self-funding mechanism made a lot more sense than not doing it. And I didn't see it as a tax. To me, the people that keep continuing to call it a tax, I understand why they do it, but I think they don't understand what a tax really is. Sorry, I feel like I'm just kind of rambling here.
No. Believe me, if I wanted to jump in, I would jump in. But this is all fascinating. I have a few things on that, and then I want to ask you about the pre-consensus and the journey ahead. And I'll let you go because I appreciate you staying for the extra like half hour or so because of the technical difficulties. So I appreciate your time, really, I do.
I would love to do this again. Like as I was saying in the beginning before we jumped on, because I know you might cut the beginning part out because of all.
I'll try to.
But like I really think the eCash community needs something like this, like what you're doing. I try to do like spaces and things like that, but because I don't want to show my face. Spaces, I feel like it can only go so far with it. I think YouTube and like people being able to see an actual person makes a huge difference. And we really just haven't had that. Like no one's stepped up to do what you're trying to do. And as we've seen, it's not easy. You got to learn all the software and technical stuff that goes on in the background to do a live stream. So you're actually putting in the work to do it. So I think that's great.
Yeah. And I'm willing to fail in front of what will eventually become thousands of people viewing this. So I'll take that. A couple of things on what you said. The first thing is words are powerful things. And I'm with you on that. I can't believe once you get sucked into something or you form a belief, they call it the primacy effect in psychology. And it's really hard to change your mind from there. And I don't blame you or anyone else one bit. The BCHA tax, Bitcoin ABC tax, like it's a powerful message. And it's like, oh, they were all going to the miners and now it's going to developers. Who decided that? The developers. Of course, it's in their self-interest to be able to get money if they can. The problem is that framing, which is so easy to take on and then just absorb. I know I had that concern when they decided to go from 8% to the split with staking of 58, 32, 10. And I was like, oh, 32. I knew why. It's because the price went down. And so they needed to be able to fund it. And they didn't want to have to keep changing it. So they shifted it. I totally get it. But even I know I was taken aback. Like, oh, well, arbitrary decision, blah, blah, blah. It's hard to get over that. It's hard to say. And that's why, someone reposted something I said on Telegram on X when someone said, how do I respond to someone who calls it a tax? And I said, well, the snarky thing to say is, well, if that's a tax, then what BCH is doing is asking people to, self-sacrifice for their benefit, because like I want the number to go up, but I don't want you to get paid for developing to make the number go up. And that's just, just as wrong. But not everyone's snarky. So it's like, okay, what's the better one? And I wrote a second one, which said, eCash funds the three contributors to the network: the miners, the stakers, and the developers, because those are the three things you need. You need to run the network or operate it. You need to secure the network, which is what the Avalanche is preventing the 51% attacks is for, and then eventually be for processing everything. And then you need someone to keep it, making it better, which is development. And you mentioned something about the price. I can't believe it's the weird thing about markets, man. BCH is worth like what 33 times, I think you said it was, of what eCash is, and eCash is just a better BCH because ever since the split, eCash has been making it better, and BCH has been doing some things offside their desk because they don't pay their developers. So that's amazing to me. That's the one part of reality that I hold as hope for the future. Because like you could say, oh, the price keeps going down, all the evidence is against it. No, there's one piece of evidence that is for it, which is its previous version before the split, which is no better than it was back then, really, compared to what this is worth $10 billion. And so that means that it's only a matter of time once people go, oh, this is just a better BCH, that people would move over, and then it would be worth $10 billion. And then at that point, the hype, if 30x, everyone would start investing in it, it would 100x probably from the current price if it caught on like that, like Zcash just did it, what, at 40x, I think. And so I do have hope that is possible based on that evidence in reality, that they think that the same exact technology but better is worth 10 billion. So why not someone finally realizing, hey, eCash should be worth more than BCH because it's just a better version of it. And so I'm hopeful for that, and I appreciate you telling the story of the journey. I think that's great. I really want to know about how you got into the writing for it. I think that's the only part you didn't cover that I was interested in.
I'll cover the writing. I'll talk about that, but first let me add to what you said. Sure. I would say that the Bitcoin Cash community, they're probably going to disagree with you that they haven't improved it.
Yeah, that's fair.
In their minds, they have improved it. They've added things like the adjustable block size cap, and they're trying to add like smart contract, or I think they did like cash tokens, but for like Bitcoin ABC and its supporters, we see that as like they've kind of changed moved the goalposts. Instead of trying to become the best form of digital cash, they're trying to, kind of mimic what Ethereum was doing, right? Which I think is a mistake, because you can see right now Ethereum's kind of losing mindshare. I feel like Ethereum's kind of stagnated. Whereas the Bitcoin ABC guys, they've remained laser focused on trying to make eCash the best form of cash for the internet, right? So on-chain scaling, millions of transactions per second, and that's kind of what they've been focused on this whole time. That's why they did pre-consensus, making it the best form of cash. So not only scaling, but in terms of instant finality. Bitcoin Cash today, in their minds, the Bitcoin Cashers, they're thinking, oh, we have made all these improvements. Now we have cash tokens, which are like in their minds a better form of SLP or ALP tokens. We've got this adjustable block size cap, but they still don't have instant finality. When you send a Bitcoin Cash transaction, it can still be double spent. So if you're a merchant that accepts BCH, it's very possible, if you accept a zero confirmation transaction, that transaction gets double spent, and there's no way for them to like prevent that from happening. So that's why we say eCash is a better form of BCH, but they probably don't agree. And of course, they have a much larger network effect. They're listed on every major U.S. exchange, so they've got that going for them. Yeah. Which sucks, because that was all through the hard work of Bitcoin ABC, and they just kind of inherited it. And now Bitcoin ABC's, they've been forced to start over. But going back to the writing thing. So I think, I guess for me, I like big. I like to dream big, even though um, I'm now like kind of middle aged. I guess I have like from a young age, I had like big ideas, big dreams, and those are the things that interest me. I've never been someone that likes to do small talk. I hate small talk. Um, I like sports and all that stuff, but it's like the big ideas that have always kind of captured my imagination. And from a I don't know, I would say like since high school, I kind of enjoyed writing, and then at some point, I got it in my head that one day I want to write a book. I didn't really know what kind of book it was going to be, and then in college, I yeah, I've shared the story online, I guess, but so in college, I've always been kind of an insomniac. I lay there, I can't sleep, and one night I was like, I can't sleep, and I was just thinking of the word insomnia, insomniac, and then um, I was just thinking of the word insomniac, and then I realized like, hey, if you change the letters around, you can create the name Simon Cain. It's like an anagram for
Yeah.
insomniac. Like, hey, that's a really cool name. It has a lot of biblical like connotations. That would be a great name for a character in a book. And then right after that, I thought Insomniac's Dream would be a great title for a book. So then I was like, oh wow, this is the book that I've always like for since high school. I was like, oh, I want to write a book. Now I've got a title and a character name. I had no idea what the book was going to be about. Um, but for the next several years, I just had this in the back of my mind, and throughout my life, like little things would happen that would give me ideas for like this book. And then eventually, in like my mid 20s, like something happened, and it kind of clicked, like an overall like kind of idea for the book. And so I decided, foolishly, you know what? All I need is time. And I'm gonna be able to write this novel. It's gonna be a best-selling bestseller, and I'm gonna become a famous author, and I'm gonna make millions of dollars. So I literally quit my job, and thought I'm just gonna. At the time, I had quite a few friends that were quitting their jobs. Some were like getting into poker. In those days, like online poker was a big thing. This was before the Black Friday, and they were, some of them were making good money, so they quit their jobs. Another friend had quit just because, like, he found a way to get unemployment and all that. So, being in my mid 20s, being stupid, I was like, you know what, I'm gonna quit my job too, and become a writer. And like, a lot of that's what people do. Like they dream of becoming an actor, and they move out to LA, or they move out to New York, and they chase their dreams. So that's what I thought I was doing. So I quit my job and thought, I have a little bit of savings. This will last me roughly 6 months. So I think I can write a book in 6 months, having never written a book before. And then after a few months, I'm trying to write this book, and I realized how bad it was. I was like, okay, I'm not going to be able to do this. So I started looking for another job, but finding a new job wasn't easy, and my money was running out a lot faster than I had anticipated. And like, yeah, there's probably like too much information, but basically, ever since then, I've always wanted to write. And then, like, so yeah, I found another job. I would write on the side, but it just wasn't. I wasn't a very good writer. I guess that's when I realized, like, in order to be good at anything, you got to spend a lot of energy, spend a lot of time doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And then, funnily enough, I found that blog, yours.org, and you could earn money for writing. So I would just write like blog posts about random stuff, whether it was about Bitcoin Cash or anything else. And then, like, people were responsive to it. People would tip me on there and like send me little Bitcoin Cash tips, and that was very encouraging. I never made money for writing before. It was just something I did. In my private time, I would share it with like friends and stuff, but it's not like they were giving me money for it. And then, so like when yours.org allowed me to earn money for writing, that was like, it motivated me to keep going, even though it's not like I'm not making a lot of money. It was just, even those little amounts kind of signaled to me that people liked my writing, so it kept me going. And then when yours.org went away because they went with the BSV folks, Ryan X. Charles was a huge Craig. He was in the Craig cult. Eventually, there was like another blog. Someone else created honest.cash. So I started writing on there. That site eventually died. And then there was read.cash. And so I was writing on there too. And then people would tip me in Bitcoin Cash as well. And so like, I would say like, because of that, I wrote a lot more than I ever did when I was trying to write my book. Because people were tipping me, it just kept motivating me, even though it's like small amounts, which is like the power of incentives, right? So that was also a very valuable lesson to me, like how powerful incentives are, no matter how small they are. And so I probably wrote more in those years from like, I don't know, 2018, 2019 through the present than I ever had in my life, you know, because writing is not easy. Sitting down in front of a computer, like when you have all these distractions, you know, you can watch Netflix, you can go watch some sports, you know, you can hang out with your friends. Like you got to force yourself to sit there and just do the work. And it's not easy, especially when no one's paying you to do it. So then I was, you know, very lazy about it. And the only times I would write was when I used to be a big gambler as well. Like I had a bit of a gambling problem. So like, you know, whether it was sports betting or online, you know, casinos or going to Vegas trips. And so like, and you know, I would have my wins. And so when I had gambling wins, it would make me think, oh, I'm going to make a bunch of money doing this, you know, counting cards or whatever. And so I would kind of get sidetracked, spend, you know, depending on how long the win streak went, I would be sidetracked doing that for a while. But ultimately, eventually I'd always lose it all. And then I'd lose everything, get all depressed, and be like, okay, I got to go back to writing my book. That's my only like hope for like a better life. But then, yeah, like I said, it's hard. I would lose the motivation and then eventually like kind of stop writing for a while. And because of crypto, it motivated me to write. And I feel, you know, I don't know for sure, but I like to believe that I've become a much better writer as a result of it. And so, yeah, I think that's kind of the journey I've been on, is through these blogs. And now I have my own blog. Thanks to the community, I've been able to build proofofwriting.com. And now I can charge people a little bit of eCash to read it. And yes, it's only like 1,000 XEC, which is 1.5 pennies at this point. But every time I get a little unlock, someone is paying 1,000 XEC to read one of my articles. It brings a smile to my face and motivates me to keep going. You know, there's probably only about 20 people who read, but they keep coming back. So that tells me, you know, they are willing to not only spend the time to read my article, but spend a little bit of their money to read it. So yeah, it keeps me going. And then now, like, I've decided I want to go back to writing my books. I've been trying to focus on that a little bit more. But I guess I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, and is the novel you're working on now the same one you were working on before, but better written because of all that experience, or have you changed the topic or the nature of the book?
It's the same book, but in the past there were like parts of it that I liked the story. But parts of it, especially the ending, I didn't really have all the way. Like the second half of the book is where I had problems. I wasn't sure like how to keep it interesting. And recently, you know, my wife came up with something. She just said something. I was like, hey, that could actually be a great way to end it. So like something clicked for me. And so now I'm like, oh, you know what? I'm going to try going back. I'd probably stopped writing it for a couple of years because I was so focused on eCash.
Yeah.
But because of what my wife said, it gave me an idea, like a way to end it. And so, and on top of that, I'm incorporating crypto into the book. So like, yeah, hopefully I'm able to actually finish it this time. And I want to be able to say it's like a crypto novel kind of thing. Because like, I'm going to bake into it some of the, you know, a little bit of crypto mixed in there.
Simon Cain, the Insomniac. That you had me already. I'm like, okay, I want to know, why is this guy insomniac? An insomniac? Is it because of something in his life? You don't want to make it biological. That's not fun. It has to be some reason, like he's a dark past or something. I will after this. I don't remember the name of it, so I can't say it on the stream here. But I'll see if I can send you a chat. There's this writer's block cure card game thing where there's like a list of cards or things you can, and so if you're having trouble, like, oh, what do I put in the middle to add some intrigue or whatever, there's like this card game where you like pull out the card and it gives you some sort of idea for what to do. So it's like, oh, something happens and stops him from doing the next thing, or oh, a new person comes in with a new thing, and like it gives you like a list of different mechanisms to make a story, to move a story forward. And it might be useful to you. I'll remember what it's called. I'll go see if I can find it on the internet and send you a link to it.
Got it. Yeah, I'll appreciate that. Yeah, I just realized, like, I love. I guess I like talking about like writing and things like that. But yeah, on the other hand, I feel like kind of foolish, talking about a book I've never written. I've been trying to write for all these years, but. Yeah, hopefully, I just want to be able to write something that I'm proud of, that like my kids will be proud of. So we'll see.
Yeah, I've given this advice before. Someone said they wanted to write a book on business or something, and they said, how do I get a deal and all this other stuff? And I said, you can try all that, but my recommendation to you is write it for yourself. Write it because you think it's a good book and you like it, and that's all you can do. That's all you can control. Yeah, if you want to shop around with agents, or if you want to self-publish, you want to do any of that stuff, that's fine. But just write the book, because you don't want to like write the book for money or for whatever, and then do it. And then when you don't get it, you get all disappointed. I mean, my book, I published it, it's out there, and I'm happy with that. And so, I'm trying to do the whole meaning token as well as my excited token, or excited token to be exact, to be able to incentivize people to help get reviews and that sort of thing for it, so that it can get a higher profile. But, I mean, if only a few hundred people read it, then that should be success. It doesn't have to be. It's either 10 million people download it or nothing, because that's like 1 out of every million books gets that kind of view. And it would suck to kind of tie your happiness or satisfaction with your life and your accomplishments and your book and all this other stuff to whether other people buy it or not. It's you should like the book if you're happy with it. I like my book, and people are like, oh, well, da da da. I'm like, if you like it, great. If you don't like it, I can't stop it. I think it's an amazing book, and anyone who's lost in life should read it. It's the most, concrete, scientifically provable, step-by-step walkthrough of all the elements that make someone's life meaningful, and how you can leverage those concepts to make your life more meaningful tomorrow. It's cool. So I get it. So just make it for my point is make it for yourself. It wasn't meant to be about me.
No, I haven't read the entire book, but there was like that shorter version you had shared.
Sure.
Yeah, I read it. I thought it was really interesting, and like your concept for what is the meaning of life, I thought it was insightful and original. So you've got a fan here.
Yeah, the short version, it's good. If you skip through the short version, that's great, because I have my detailed explanations of everything. I have these questions and exercises and stuff in the full version. And what I did with the short version, I mean, to be frank, I just took, it's like, let's call it an essay. Each chapter of the book is like, it has like an essay, and then it kind of goes into detail of how everything works. And so I just cut it down to that just kind of essay explaining that here's what it is. It's like 10 pages and then next thing. And so it's a much tighter version, but it doesn't like, here's some exercises. Some people don't like it and that stuff anyway. So so if you go in through that tells you everything you need to know. And then the rest of the book is just helping to, some of it's proof, some of it's more like deep scientific explanations of how things work. Some of it's helping you to do it. But if you got through that, it's pretty cool. Cool. So last things is just, what does pre-consensus mean to you, both in terms of the thing itself, as well as what it means from a milestone perspective in eCash's journey?
So pre-consensus, the reason it's important, like I said it earlier, is one, it gives us instant finality. So if you watch Amari's talk from the recent conference, he explains it all. Like, they're trying to make digital cash. So what do you need for that? One, it has to be fast, low transaction fees. So fast, they did a study and they said if it takes longer than like 3 seconds, then people are going to think it's broken. So you need something that confirms within like 3 seconds. And that's what pre-consensus is going to give us. So transactions can finalize within seconds. You don't have to wait for blocks. If you buy a coffee, you're not standing there waiting for the next block to come in. But also, it's going to help scale the network. So this is more technical, but by using pre-consensus, it reduces the amount of work that a miner has to do when a block is found. So the amount of like data that has to get broadcast to the network, it gets spread out over time, so that when a block is found, you're not suddenly having to like propagate and validate all this data at once, which causes all kinds of issues. So you can have huge blocks where now, because of pre-consensus, the amount of data that's getting transferred is spread out over time, so that even though those blocks are big with a lot of data in them, the nodes already have most of that data already taken care of. So it's a pathway to getting to that millions of transactions per second goal that they have. But yeah, so that's kind of the benefits of it. But also, yeah, it's kind of it shows that Bitcoin ABC, they are a team that you can kind of trust, and I've seen other projects in crypto where they say they're going to do all this stuff, but they don't actually deliver. Time goes by, and then eventually they say, oh, you know what, we're just shutting down, or oh, we got to print more tokens because we're out of money. Bitcoin ABC, maybe it's taken longer than some of us had hoped, but they've actually delivered on something that they've been working very hard on for many years. So it just increases my conviction in the team and belief that these are the guys that I want to support. But yeah, I mean, and then yeah, I don't have much time left, but yeah. I did also want to mention, like, since I said it on X, that for people there, I guess there's about 7 people watching live right now. If you post your eCash address in the chat, I wanted to send them a little bit of XEC, because the person that recently won the proof of writing lotto, he actually won 21 million XEC. He sent back 2 million. He wanted to help grow the community. So that's what I want to use that to kind of tip people who are in the chat. If you guys post an eCash address, I'm happy to send it to you.
Yeah. And that was the last thing I had, was just what's next. Do you it could be functionality like subnets you're interested in, or it could just be what's next in terms of, do you think pre-consensus is going to be a turning point and it's going to take off like Zcash did recently? Just get your thoughts on moving forward. What do you look forward to?
Crypto is so irrational, like we were saying earlier. Like it's hard to know what's going to happen in the future. But my hope is that eventually people kind of recognize the superior technology that eCash represents. I think there's a real opportunity for the right business, the right influencer, the right company. Sorry, for example, if I was a decision maker at a major company that has something to do with like online retail or anything like that, I would look into eCash and think, hey, this is a pretty small market cap coin. I could take a sizable position in it, and if I'm a legitimate business with like a decent number of customers, I can take a sizable position and then kind of announce a partnership, something like that. And hopefully it might help the price of XEC. So it helps my initial investment, but long term, I could incorporate XEC into my own business as a way to kind of retain customers, kind of as a way to like give back to customers, in eCash or something like that. And so I believe all it takes is like someone or a builder that builds an application on top of eCash that leverages all these great properties. So I'm hoping that now with pre-consensus, like we've got all the major pieces in place for that to happen. Like even you doing this live stream, before pre-consensus, before like the new website, eCash was still in its building phase, and I'm hoping that November 15th marks like a new phase for the project. We've got this beautiful new website. We've got pre-consensus, so we've got instant finality. So it means people don't have to accept a eCash transaction and just hope that it's not going to be double spent. So it's like for the first time, we're entering a new era where it really is like digital cash. And so hopefully it catches on, but who knows? I at this point, I've stopped trying to predict what's going to happen in the future. I just continue to support the project.
That was a better answer than I could possibly have imagined. That it's just, that's a nice way to end this on a moment of hope and what its potential is and what it could be. I thought you were gonna do, oh, I like subnets or something. That was so much better than that. So I really appreciate your time, and I'll let you get going. I appreciate the extra time. I really apologize to everyone, including you, most importantly for the probably 30 minutes